Welcome to the Third and Central podcast, the only podcast dedicated solely to the University of Louisville Baseball program. This is Matt Sefcovic, and as always, I'm joined tonight by Terry Pennington from Inside Louisville Baseball on this beautiful Cinco de Mayo. I know, Terry, you got to do some celebrating earlier. The wife and I were going to try to hit one of the Mexican restaurants later this week and celebrate and pay our tributes to Mexico. We love to go get some chips and salsa and queso. You absolutely cannot beat it. So we will definitely partake. It wasn't tonight, but we will be there eventually. So I'm glad you got to indulge in some chips and salsa and enjoy Cinco de Mayo after a tough weekend we had up in South Bend, which we will dive into here in just a few minutes. So before we do that, Terry, how's everything going your way after a trip up north this weekend to South Bend?
Yeah, happy to be out of the state of Indiana, out of South Bend, and that cold weather they were having up there, that was not not my favorite for sure. So happy to be out of there, not just for baseball purposes. What did I say? Armpit of America, happy to leave it. And, let's come back home this week. Let's see what we can do, and then we'll see if we can find some warm weather down in Georgia this weekend.
No, I 100%. I didn't make the trip up there this weekend, obviously, but just watching along and watching the weather reports, I was not jealous of what was happening, although we got a lot of rain this weekend, but I was not jealous of the weather and the wind, because it just cuts a little bit different up there, it seems. So glad you're back safely and ready to enjoy at least one at home before you hit the road again to Atlanta this weekend. So let's just run down the resume real quick after dropping to, we obviously talked about EKU last week. We were able to catch that game in last week's podcast. So went 2-2 last week. The Cardinals currently sit at 32-15, 13-11 in conference play. The new polls came out this week, and they're still ranked in all the polls. Baseball America has them highest at 19th, D1 at 20, Perfect Game at 25. Coaches poll dropped them in at 24. So I was glad to see they still were able to stay ranked in the polls. I was kind of worried about what Perfect Game was going to do, because they haven't been too favorable to the Cards this year. But nonetheless, we're still ranked. We dropped one seed line in conference standings from 7th to 8th, and we have series remaining against Georgia Tech, who's the current 3 seed, and Wake Forest, who is the current 10 seed. So with 2 weeks left in the regular season, I guess it's never too early to kind of look at what that outlook would look like in the conference tournament. So if the season ended today, like I said, Louisville would be the 8th seed, and they would play the winner of Virginia and California, and the winner of that game would go on to face the number 1 seed, which is currently Florida State. So, that the biggest thing right now, I think, for Louisville is you got to stay on that 8 line or above, because 8 and above, 8 to 5, you get a single bye. 1 through 4, you get a double bye. You want to at least stay above that 8 line to at least get that one extra day to give your arms a rest and not have to throw as many days in the tournament. So that's kind of where we stand right now. ELO dropped to 31, really took a big hit this week. RPI dropped 7 spots down to 27, and strength of schedule dropped to 38th from 23. And some of these numbers obviously take into effect the EKU game. Even though you win that game, the RPI, strength of schedule, we talked about that a little bit last week on the podcast too. You win those games, but it just metric-wise, they really haunt you when it comes to your resume. So that's kind of where we are right now, heading into the last 2 weeks of the season. Got some big opportunities left, but at this point in the season, that's kind of where we stand. So thoughts on that before we jump into the Notre Dame series?
Yeah, when it comes to the rankings and things, I think that those spots are about right to me. That 20 range, that seems good. Just because you lose a series doesn't mean you're some, and especially one on the road against a Notre Dame team who obviously is hot. They're playing. They haven't played better ball than all year than what they're doing right now. We run to a little bit of a buzzsaw in terms of they got some couple real good starting pitchers. We didn't seem to do a great job in terms of trying to get them out of the game, take pitches, things like that. Those were one of the things that were really our forte on the weekend. So they were kind of able to take the series off us there. And so, a series loss to a good team, not gonna kill you in terms of a ranking. As far as the ACC standings go, a couple things. I do have a couple thoughts on the seed line. So obviously, like you said, super, super important to stay at least between 5 and 8. Give you that first day off. If you're able to stay in the top half of the bracket, if you're able to get through your first 2 games, you'd get Friday off. I think we've talked about that before on here, just the goofiness of there's only 2 games, 2 of the days in the quarterfinals, just 2 a day. It's very weird. I don't understand it in any way, but that's the way it is. So everyone's could get, if you're in that top half, you could get an extra day of rest after throwing, your first 2 guys, if that's the way you were going to go about it. Now, the thing is, whether they care about it or not, I have no idea. But if you're in that 8-9 game or you're in that 8-1 game, those are at 9 in the morning, I think. So I'm just not 100% sure that 9 a.m. baseball is going to be your best baseball. Are you able to get up, at that time in the morning, get yourself ready, get yourself going? I know these guys are used to getting up and they got to get to class and they have to do all these things, but I have a hard time thinking that 9 a.m., that's your best, most favorite time to play ball. So, man, if you could stay out of that 8-9 game or stay out of that 8-1 game, not only just for the matchup of whatever, potentially playing NC State or Florida State or whoever it may be there, because no matter who you're going to play on that day, it's going to be a good team. It's an NCAA tournament team. So you're going to see a good ball club that day for sure. But man, I would like to stay out. I don't know. Just something about that 9 a.m. makes me feel a little bit like that might not be the best time. If you're trying to get a win to up your resume for the NCAA tournament, who knows? Maybe it's not the best time for your opponent either. So maybe we would come out and play great, and then whatever I'm saying is completely null and void. But those are just some of my thoughts on it. Just when I looked at some of the times in a game, just the weird off days in there is a little strange.
And, to kind of piggyback off that, you talk about playing that, game at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Imagine if you're Stanford or California and, that game is all of a sudden instead of 8 or 9, it's 5 or 6 in the morning. So just a brutal schedule. So I'm sure they're trying to do everything they can to avoid that line. But it makes me think of, the SEC down in Hoover. It rains, I think. It's like the Derby. It rains every year during the SEC tournament in Hoover, Alabama. And it seems like because of that, they start games sometimes like 10, 11 o'clock at night. So if you want to watch good baseball during that time of year, you can turn the TV on about 2 o'clock in the morning and find a good SEC baseball game on. But yes, some of these times are brutal. But when you've got, 16 teams or whatever that you're trying to get into one tournament in a short period of time because you've got the selection show the following weekend, it just seems like they do whatever they can to get these games in. One other thing I wanted to touch on, if on every Monday, Aaron Fitt and Kendall Rogers at D1 Baseball, who we obviously talk about often, we love the work that they do, just incredible work across the country for college baseball. They do a weekly chat on Mondays, and it's always pretty entertaining. I throw questions in there sometimes, but a lot of times I just get on there just to kind of observe and see what their thoughts are. So nobody had said anything about Louisville today, and I wanted to just throw a question out there. So I said, do you see a path where Louisville is able to get back into the hosting conversation? This is something we talked about, you and I did last week on the podcast quite a bit, and Kendall Rogers responded, and he said his biggest concern basically was the RPI at 27. He said, but we'd have to win the Georgia Tech series and the Wake Forest series at minimum, which I 100% agree with. You've got to win those two. And he's kind of said that winning those two is going to help your RPI and in your seed line for the ACC. So hand in hand, if you win games, those metrics are going to improve. So, he knows this stuff as much as anybody. He keeps up with the rest of the country more than most. I keep up with Louisville and a little bit of, other schools. I don't keep up with everybody like he does. So coming from a guy that does, and this is his job, he's not saying it's out of the conversation. So we just got to, win 2 weekends and, kind of see what happens from there. You got a really quality opponent, Vandy, coming in on Tuesday. We're not going to spend any time on that because when this comes out, that game will be over. But a big opportunity there. So Louisville isn't out of that conversation to host. Just got to really take the opportunities that are in front of us and win a couple series. Try to take a game against Vandy and the rest of it. Just go out, have fun, play baseball, win games, and see what happens.
Yeah, when you look at the needs report and what they're saying in terms of what gets you to a certain RPI, and for those who don't know, that's exactly what it is. It breaks it down to home games, road games, and what you need to do with the games remaining to get a certain RPI number. And so to get to a top 16 RPI, it's basically saying Louisville needs to win 7 of their remaining 8 games. And so as of now, obviously at the recording of this, we have not played Vanderbilt. So 7 of 8 from here on in gets you a top 16. Look, if you win 7 of your last 8, you're a host. Period. End of story. It doesn't, nothing else matters. You win 7 of 8 against this schedule, your RPI will be in the top 16. You will be a host. That's the end. If you win, I still am sticking by what I've been saying the whole time. If we get to just a bit above 500 in the conference, you get to 16, you get to 17. Look, you win 6 games of these 8. At worst, you're one of those first 4 2 seeds, I think. And so you are right in that discussion at the very worst, and that's still with ACC Tournament to come. So, yeah, last weekend, and we're going to talk about it, obviously it did not go the way anybody wanted it to go. But it's still all out there. The odds of you, everything breaking your way to win an ACC title, that stuff's probably gone by the wayside. But it is still out there even to get in the top 4 in the ACC. Mm-hmm. You're going to need to probably win 5 or 6 of your last, win out or win 5, but it's still there, and this team is capable, and that's the thing about it. That's what can be frustrating, right? Sometimes when things don't go the way you want them to go, is because you've seen them do it, and so it's just like anything else. I often think about people who, how golf is such a frustrating sport, and especially for beginners, and they get really frustrated because, it looks easier, obviously, on TV and whatever than it really is. But then, I've often thought the better you get at it, the more frustrating it is because you know what you can do, yet you're not executing it. And so I think that's kind of some of the things that come into play sometimes is we've seen this team. We saw them do it just a week ago, right, against Florida State, how good and what the ceiling looks like for this team. And the ceiling might even be better than that when, we have more of a full complement of players. And so, maybe a little bit of a letdown off of that weekend, this past weekend against Notre Dame, but still a lot of baseball left. At minimum, there's 9 games left in this, before the NCAA tournament starts. When you include at least one ACC tournament game, And so, I don't know, man, still a lot left out there. It's still a lot of chances. And the issue is, can they take it on the road and get it done? And obviously we'll talk about that later tonight as well. But, they're gonna have to step it up a little bit in these last couple weeks. And I think they're more than capable of doing it.
To kind of talk about what you're saying, we've seen this team do it before. Okay, let's look at the top handful of teams in the country right now. Number 1, Texas, beat them in Texas. Florida State is ranked 2nd. Just took the series from them. North Carolina is ranked 4th. We won a series against them. So the top 4 teams in the country, we've got 5 wins over them. So to tell me that this team, can't do it, that's wrong, because look at the best in the country. We've beat them. And and it's not like we just went and won a weekend series somewhere, and it was a a head scratcher because we shouldn't have won the series. No, we've done it multiple times. And then, you go down even a little bit further, you look at Clemson, they're ranked ninth. We go into their place and kind of limped into that series a little bit with a couple of injuries and lost 2 one-run games at their place when they were ranked third or fourth in the country at that point in time. So we've seen this team excel on the big stage against really good teams. So like you said, we know it's there. We know it's in them. We just got to go out and take care of business these past couple of weeks. And we'll quickly forget about this Notre Dame series if that's the case. So let's go ahead and hop into that and go back to last Thursday. It was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. And it got started off on the right foot. Zion comes out and hits a home run in the first inning. He did the same thing again on Friday. We'll talk about that. So 2 days in a row, hit a home run in the first inning. But I think the story for me in that game was Ethan Eberle. Man, he was just what we continue to ask of him from a staff and what they continue to put him out on the mound, the situations they do. A Thursday night game in South Bend on the road in an ACC environment, goes out and throws up 5 innings, just gives up 1 run. Then you've got Justin West that comes in and throws 2 scoreless. Tucker throws 2 innings, gives up just 1 run. And offensively, like I said, Zion was able to get the home run in the first. Got another run from a strikeout that was ultimately a pass ball. I think that was Eddie, if I'm not mistaken. And then Lippy hit a fielder's choice. Those are the only 3 runs. So in the 9 innings, we won the game 3-2. Weren't able to get a ton going offensively, but we've talked about this recently. The pitching staff did enough to keep us in the game. That's kind of been the thing that we've heard all season long is pitching this, pitching that. They kept us in the game on Thursday. I mean, to go up there and win a 3-2 game, that says a lot more about your pitching than it does your offense. We were able to compile 11 hits, but just could not get anything going, kind of strung together offensively. 11 hits is enough to win a baseball game for sure, but it seemed like, you and I were talking earlier, it seemed like, a lot of 2-out hits, but just couldn't string anything together. But nonetheless, way to go up there and set the tone. Really proud of Eberle. I mean, just cannot say enough about his maturity and his development and just the trust that the staff has in a freshman to continuously throw him out there on the mound to open a series on the road in ACC play.
That kid's been nothing short of phenomenal, especially over the last month. I mean, as they, like you just mentioned, as they continue to toss him out there, they run him out in the biggest spots on the weekend. He just keeps going out on these series openers and just, whether they have ended up winning all these games or not is not actually the point. It's how he's pitched, how he's looked, how he's controlled his emotions in these environments. I mean, when I was talking to him after the game, I was, we were kind of laughing about the idea that, a year ago, when you're, in Normal, Illinois, pitching a high school baseball game a week, could you even have thought that you're on national television on a Thursday night throwing against Notre Dame and, you've also, run out there against Florida State. You've run out there at Clemson and thrown, no hit 'em for 4. I mean, it's unbelievable what this kid has done. Look, is it going to always be this way? I hope so, but probably not. I mean, that at some point he's probably bound to run into some trouble, but he just is so cool, calm, collected. He's got that low heartbeat, that, the ice water in the veins type kid. And I mean, he's not rattled. I mean, even against Florida State, obviously the way that game started for him was not great, in terms of just kind of the way things unfolded. Pike goes down, they get the inside the park homer, and all of a sudden he's down 4-0, and then he just deals for the rest of the time that he's in there. And so that's what I love about him the most, is just the way that he's able to he always just seems so composed. And that's what you want from a guy that you're going to run out in those big spots, is because it's not always going to go right. And it's not like he got every guy, it's like he was just sitting guys down left and right. I mean, there's some base runners here and there, and he's just able to work around it. And I mean, it doesn't even seem like it bothers him. Honestly, I could not be more impressed from specifically him on this night. But some of these freshman arms, man, are just they're pitching well beyond their years at this point. And you talked about Zion with the homer. Obviously, he gets the double. Moves over third, comes in like you said on the pass ball, wild pitch, whatever you want to score it. And so, look, it was getting dicey there for a second in the ninth. Notre Dame ran themselves into an out. They had a runner on second there, and I don't know if Dan was going to make a move there. There were guys getting hot. But it was, he got himself out of it right there. Tucker was, and again, we've talked about it many, many times on here. Even when the innings aren't clean for Tucker, bulldog mentality, man, he's right back after that next guy. And that's my favorite thing about Tucker. Like, that kid is ready for the next one. And so whether it's the next game, whether it's the next pitch, the next inning, the next out, whatever it is, he's ready for the next one, is ready to move on. If it hasn't gone his way, he's ready to move on if it has gone his way. And that's why he's the right guy, the right mentality to be a closer. And so, it looked like it was getting a little dicey there for a minute, but he gets himself out of it, gets the throws the 2 innings there. You mentioned West. Really, really good to see Justin West be able to take it away from Jim Patterson Stadium. He's been much better at home than he's been on the road. And so to see him go on the road and just lock that down, that's a big confidence boost for him for sure. Has to be a big confidence boost to the coaches, his teammates, whatever it may be. And that was a really good performance. I mean, as the year has gone, we haven't won a lot of low-scoring games. And we haven't been in a lot of low-scoring games. But we haven't won a lot of them. And so, man, what a great way to start the weekend off. And you love the way that, especially after kind of the way Tuesday had gone, it kind of seemed like they were sleepwalking through the game against Eastern. They come back out, get that opening win. You're riding high with a 4-game winning streak, right? And headed into Friday.
Yeah, you win the game on Thursday, and, Patrick's on the bump on Friday coming back from missing a couple starts. So you're excited about, his return and what he's going to be able to do. And you hope that he's going to be able to just kind of inject some energy into the rest of the roster and the bullpen and the staff. And, everybody's just playing with a little bit of extra pep in their step with, having your ace back. And Patrick was able to throw, what was it? I think 2 innings. He threw 2. He was on a, pitch count, obviously first outing back. So he was able to throw 2 innings, got up around 47 pitches. Looked good, but obviously, not throwing for a couple weeks. There's some, dust you got to shake off a little bit. So, but it was just good to see him back, to have him throw, 3 weeks before postseason play starts, just to get back on the mound. And hopefully as we progress into the postseason, kind of get rid of that pitch count. Obviously right now it's lower. You would like to think that it's going to continuously increase. And before the end of the season, he'll be at full strength, but that's yet to be seen. We don't know. But it was just really good to have him back. And like I said, Zion sets the tone. First inning with a home run again. And then after that, the offense just kind of went to the wayside. They got 4 hits for the rest of the game. So the final 8 innings, we're only able to get 8 hits. And just couldn't really string anything together. Something we've kind of seen, like you talked about on the road. This team is they're a little bit different away from Jim Patterson Stadium. So that's something we're going to have to figure out. And hopefully, this weekend, that's going to be, one of the messages that they'll receive from the coaching staff as we hit the road to Atlanta. But we talked about Rory Fox last week on the podcast a little bit, which was Notre Dame's pitcher on Friday night. And man, was he tough. I mean, 7 innings, just gave up a couple hits. It just, he had his good stuff that night, and we just really couldn't do much with him on the mound. Carson Tenney, we talked about him before the podcast. I mean, guys just got all the tools in the toolkit. Just a special player behind the plate defensively, got a good arm. Obviously, the bat is there. He is just we talked about it last weekend or last week with Jamie Arnold, I believe. Having the opportunity to see some guys when you play in the ACC. Carson's one of those guys. He's going to be a high draft pick whenever he goes here in a couple of years. So, but Louisville, they kind of just ran into a buzzsaw with Rory Fox and lost the game on Friday 10-3 to even up the series. It probably looked a little bit more crooked than it was. Notre Dame put up a 4 spot in the bottom of the 8th, so I don't think the box score says 10-3, and that's what it was. But they were able to tack on a couple there late as we got kind of deeper into the bullpen. So series was evened up. I felt confident going into Sunday with Peter Mike on the mound. We'll talk about Sunday here in just a few minutes, but how was it being up there? What were Dan's synopsis of the game after that on Friday?
Yeah, exactly like you had talked about is how I felt as well. Just some excitement getting to see Patrick run back out there again, right? I mean, I knew he was on the 45 pitch count. Obviously, I kept watching as, the batters were kind of going away, like how strict is this 45? And they, obviously because I think he was at 44 and then they let him go to another batter. So I didn't know exactly how strict, is it going to be 45 and they're going to come get him, or should they get him, one pitch before, or whatever it may be. But he did get to 47. The fastball was live, man. I mean, that was what was important to me. I mean, he was running it up there at 98. And so, the arm's healthy. He's feeling good, right? And so that was good to see for me, just that the velo's there. So, as he continues to work his way back in, I believe the pitch count, I've been told for this coming weekend is going to be more around 60. And so you can, I don't know if they were, if he was sitting at 40, would they run him back out there for the third inning? I'm not completely sure. But I do know about 60 for this coming weekend. So, hopefully he's able to get through 3+ innings this coming weekend against Georgia Tech. The scouts were out, man. It was filled behind there. And so, you wondered, a lot of times it's kind of funny because when they come to see just particular guys, they'll jet out right when he's done. But they stayed, and you mentioned the game that Tinney had. There were a lot of guys jotting down some notes there on Friday night, and he earned it with the way he swings the bat, like you said. Pretty good, pretty agile behind the plate, keeps the ball in front of him. The arm's solid. It's a cannon for an arm. And so, yeah, is he going to be at Notre Dame next year? I doubt it. He might be, but they might have to pony up. And so I'm sure there'll be some SEC schools come calling, or another big ACC program, somebody come calling for him. But if he wants to stay at Notre Dame, he's going to have to turn some money down, I think. But he was the real deal. And, as far as the pitching goes, look, we talked about it last week, right? We talked about their 2 frontline guys are the guys. And after that, it's a little pedestrian. And that's exactly what it was. Their guys on this last week, Thursday and Friday, they were really good. I mean, yeah, we got the win Thursday, but, I mean, it's not like we were some dominant offense and chased him out of the game early. We took it on the chin a little bit this weekend in terms of just in the batter's box. And so, we were able to get some runners on here and there from time to time over the weekend, like you'd mentioned earlier. Just not come up with that big, 2-out hit, or sometimes we try to get it going with 2 outs and things like that. But I do agree with you. The game got away late. The four run, the boys kept fighting. They were clawing back. We clawed back in the game. It's 6-3, and maybe you get a couple on, you feel okay about it. But they obviously put up a 4 spot there in the 8th and kind of run away with it a little bit there. But sometimes that'll happen to you. That's baseball. It's, think about how good we are at home and how much better and how much more comfortable we are at home. And, you're going to flip that around, and you got to think a lot of these other teams feel the exact same way in their own home environment. And so it's not one of these places. Look, under no circumstances, Notre Dame, Florida State or Clemson or NC State or any of these places. I mean, it's more Boston College than it is anywhere else. But and I don't mean that as a slight to Boston College. I actually love their ballpark. But, it's one of those places where Thursday night we had just as many Louisville fans in there as Notre Dame fans. I mean, it was that type of place. Now they put few more people in there on the weekend, but that night just couldn't, just like you said, just couldn't quite get anything going, and just couldn't quite get over the hump pitching wise in terms of just some shutdown innings when we needed them, and just the little things, man. We talk about it all the time on here, but it's strike one, it's defense, it's stay out of the walks. It's even if it's a walk, it's got to be a competitive at bat from the pitching standpoint. These can't be walks on 3-0 or 3-1 counts where the batter doesn't have to do anything. And it was just a little bit too much of that on Friday and on Saturday, which we'll talk about here in a minute as well.
Yeah, and one thing I want to go back and talk about, we talk about Patrick, pumping 98, and that was in a cold environment. That's not like that was a good baseball environment, right? Like when he gets down south a little bit, this weekend in Atlanta, I'm assuming it's going to be quite a bit warmer than it was in South Bend over the weekend. Get back in Louisville, get back home next weekend. You got to think that he's going to be at least there, if not, higher when he gets in, just in a better baseball environment where you can throw the baseball and it's just easier to throw. So I think that is encouraging that he was pumping 98 in that type of a setting in South Bend. And then you talked about the 3-0 counts, and, Dan, he's mentioned, he's done with 3-0 counts and that, and we've got to just kind of, as a pitching staff as a whole, just kind of wipe that out and just completely eliminate that from our repertoire, because it's really, really becoming something that's holding them back. And I don't have a stat in front of me for it, but I feel like 100% of 3-0 walks score every time. Like if they get on base, it seems like every one of them scores. It's just the baseball god speaking to you that you don't need to throw a 4-pitch walk because they're going to score every single time. So hopefully we can continue to eliminate that, because I think it's getting better. I do. The control is, Saturday was a struggle. We'll talk about that in just a second. But, we've been talking about that for a long time, and the numbers are getting better. I mean, I feel like if you look up and down this roster, you win a game on Thursday 3-2, your pitchers they're executing, right? They're going up there and they're battling. So we're definitely seeing a lot of advancement in the pitching staff this year, which is very encouraging. But let's talk about Saturday, because it was a tough one. But like you said, it's baseball. It's part of it. Peter Michael was on the mound and got the start up in Game 3, a rubber game against the Irish. And Peter Michael's one that we obviously love. We love Peter on the podcast. We talked about him quite a bit. But he walked to 3, I think, in 2/3 of an inning. Dan came and got him pretty quick on Saturday. I think that showed how important this game was. He didn't have a good feel for the zone, it felt like, on Saturday. So Dan came and got him early, gave up 4 runs in just 2/3 of an inning. But after that, I was pretty encouraged by the pitching staff, right? From there forward, Jake Schweitzer, who we've talked about a lot on here, and we're probably going to talk about him a lot for the next couple of weeks. And then for the next couple of years, we're probably going to talk about him even more, because, man, the freshman is just, he is dealing. He's got that good stuff on the mound right now. Excuse me. It just seems like he's getting better and better. He's like fine wine. And we've talked about this. His first outing, he gave up, I believe, 3 of his earned runs on the season. And he's still got an ERA around 1.7-ish, if I'm not mistaken. So just take his first outing of his career ever in college out of that, and those numbers look even better. So really encouraged to see what he was able to do. He threw 3 1/3, didn't give up a run. Daniel Levitch, Stark, Hoyt all came in and threw up zeros. So there was a lot of good things that happened with our bullpen. They got beat 7-4, but I do think after the first inning, able to settle down for the majority of the game. But kind of the same thing we saw on Thursday and Friday. It was just a little bit frustrating offensively from a team that you think is going to go score a bunch of runs, because that's kind of been our MO for the season. But we weren't able to get things going. But even that to be said, you get to the 9th inning, and we've got the tying run at the plate. You've got your 4 and 5 hitters at the plate in a game that you haven't really executed particularly well, but you still have a chance to tie the thing up with 4 and 5 hitters coming up. Couldn't get it done. That's part of it. But again, pound out 9 hits. I think 7 of them were singles. So just, couldn't get anything in the gap, couldn't get anything for extra base hits. But come away from Notre Dame with a series loss, but a lot of opportunity ahead of us.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned just a minute ago, the thing that's the most frustrating, and believe me, like I've said a million times on the air, if you're a fan or an observer, a casual fan, whatever you want, you're a season ticket holder, whatever it may be, you're on a podcast talking about whatever it may be. If you think that you are frustrated by some of the things, believe me, they feel it and more. They're not out there trying to. Trust me, Peter Michael doesn't want to go out there and start the game the way that played out for him. That's not what he's trying to do. He's obviously out there trying to execute. That's what makes me feel bad for these kids when stuff kind of goes a little sideways, because this is big time baseball, man. There's a lot on the line, right? It's not just these games. It's not just this team. These kids have futures, right? Could you play pro ball? Could you, anything like that? Maybe you're not maybe you haven't got a lot of run. Maybe, who knows? Maybe you're trying to put stuff on tape for at some point if you need to transfer. Whatever it may be, there's a lot on the line every time these kids run out on the diamond. And so they're giving max effort. They're giving max effort during the week to be their best on the weekend. And sometimes it just doesn't go your way. And that was the case for Peter Michael. You said it. I mean, look, who loves Peter Michael more than we do, right? I mean, his parents probably. Maybe, I don't know if he's got a girlfriend. Maybe his girlfriend, dog or something. We love Peter Michael. I'm sure the next time he runs out, he's going to be solid. He's going to be ready to roll. He's going to be good. But it just wasn't his day. And you're right. He got the quick hook. And look, you want to know how much Dan trusts Jake Schweitzer? He brings him in. High leverage. We're in a jam right now. We need outs. And he gives up the hit to start it. And after that, I think he might have actually even walked the next batter. But after that, he spun 3 1/3 of just, I don't think he gave up a hit, and I think it was just one walk. The kid's outstanding. It's all weak contact. Guys are just rolling over on the baseball. That slider is stupid. I've talked about it on here multiple times. I could just I don't know what you need, just like a tape recorder of me, and you can just play it each week of me talking about Jake Schweitzer and how good the stuff is, how locked in he seems. And again, it's the confidence. He knows he's done it. He knows he can do it. And so his stuff, he doesn't have to do anything extra. Jake doesn't have this 95, 96, 97 mile an hour fastball. And that's okay because he doesn't need it. The other stuff is good enough. And so when you get to that point where you realize just what I have, what I am as a pitcher or a hitter is good enough, is more than enough, that's the sweet spot. And he knows that right now, and he's in that groove. And that's why Dan can give Jake the ball at any point, and Dan can feel confident, or Roger, whatever it may be, that the coaching staff feels confident, the players behind him feel confident. How many times over the years have you heard Dan talk about, such and such a guy is probably fun to play defense behind because the ball's coming? If you're a middle infielder or just an infielder in general, be ready. The ball's coming to you. It's going to be a 1 or a 2 hopper. You're going to either get to, you just fling a little sidearm over there to first base. Done. On to the next one. Because that's the pitcher that Jake is. It's all weak contact. It's like watching an artist work. It's so fun. I couldn't be more excited for him. Again, local kid, Trinity kid, seen him pitch forever, so it makes it kind of more fun, especially for people around here. Just feel a little more invested in him in that way. We've obviously had a lot of success getting Trinity kids in here, so he was great. But again, it's not just him. Like you said, the rest of the bullpen was pretty good for the rest of the game. I mean, we ran into, we just, some of the little things where it's, a walk or it's a wild, you get a walk, you get a wild pitch, there's a runner at second and a base hit. You give up one hit and it's a run. Man, those are just killers. And that just kind of seems to be the way it goes sometimes. Like you mentioned, like you said, it seems like the 4-pitch walk is going to score. That is how it seems. And it seems the same way with a wild pitch. Those are all free bases. So you give up a free base on a walk. You give up a free base on a wild pitch. You give up a free base when you throw to the wrong base from the outfield. These are things that you're taught from the time that you start playing organized baseball. Where to throw the ball when you're in the outfield. Like, if you're not, you gotta know who you are as a player. You have to have some self-awareness sometimes and know, can I cut this guy down at the plate? Because if I can't, throwing to the cutoff, throwing to the pitcher being the cutoff or the first baseman that drops to be the cutoff man down the line, that ain't gonna work. Because then the guy's at second base and then a hit scores another run. They're little simple things that we talk about all the time. You have to do the little things to win baseball games. And just to be quite frank, we didn't do them on this past weekend. And I asked Dan about it, and I mentioned, the way I phrased it was, he's not responsible, and what I meant was, he's not the one that's actually doing it. He's not the one throwing it or not blocking it or throwing the ball to a certain spot. But he said, no, I am responsible because I'm the one teaching it and they're the ones not doing it. And so, look, whether you're a fan and you get frustrated by it or whatever the case may be, the simple fact of the matter is this. They know. They just have to execute it. And it really just comes down to doing the right thing in the right moment. And that's what those are some of the things this team has to improve. I mean, just the free bases given up, those are runs, man. We gave away 3 free runs in terms of wrong base, wild pitch, advance, hit. That's a run. It wouldn't have been a run, things like that. And we did it all with 2 outs. It was so crazy. And so the pitching staff, I felt like, it seemed like anyway, they deserved a little better. For most of the game. But if we just do those little things right, the wins are there for the taking. And so that makes me feel good going forward. Is those are easy things to fix. It's not like you mentioned, the pitching staff has been a lot better. Not everyone's going to have it every game. We've talked about that a million times, right? And I know I'm talking on and on here, but there's opportunities there for W's going forward. They just clean up some minor things. And like I said, that's what makes me feel good going forward, because those are things they can definitely do.
Yeah, and I think that's what's encouraging to me too, is because it's not things that are not fixable, right? Like we're a top 25 team. Like this is a very good baseball team, right? But the margin for error, especially in ACC baseball, it's so razor thin. You look at some of these teams that, look at the Clemson series, for example. You go down there, and that's one of the best teams in the country, and you lose 2 one-run games. What if we struck a batter out instead of walking a batter? Or what if we didn't throw a wild pitch? Or what if we got one extra hit here or there? We talked about it. We could have swept them. Like, I know it's crazy to say, but we were so close to sweeping Clemson at their place. The margin of error in ACC baseball is just so razor thin, which kind of brings me to the point I want to talk about this Notre Dame team is, how in the hell are they 26-19? Like, after watching them for 3 games this weekend, and I know they're 8-2 in their last 10. They're 8-1 in their last 9 ACC games, last 3 series, and they're kind of starting to creep up and get in the conversation of, if this team can to make a run and win a couple more games and get into the tournament. But that's a good baseball team. And you talk about that razor thin margin of a team that a couple weeks ago, I was like, this is a good opportunity to go up here and sweep this team. Like, they were 16th in the conference. They hadn't beaten anybody. They looked like they were dead on the season. And all of a sudden, they've risen up and they have completely answered the call and look like they could potentially be a tournament team as we kind of stumble into the last 2 weeks of the season. They've got Bowling Green this weekend, and then they go down to Miami to finish the season. But I was just watching the series this weekend. I was like, I don't understand how this team is, kind of where they are. How are they 12 and 15 in conference play? Because they with the two arms that they had at the beginning of the weekend, this team felt like a top half team in conference play. But it was a good road test for Louisville. I wish we could have come out with another win. But kind of final thoughts before we kind of switch our conversation over to talk about Georgia Tech. We're head down to Atlanta this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, that's the thing, when you look at the full body of work, right? And so you look at the standings, or you look at whether it's ACC, or you look at what Notre Dame's RPI is. You think, well, okay, this is a team that's not as good as us, right? When you look at the metrics or stand, whatever it may be, and so you think, oh, we're going to go up here, we're going to do this, this, and this. Well, again, number one, we have not been a great road team. I think, what are we, 5-10 on the road? Mm-hmm. But again, that's not just a Louisville problem. It's hard to win on the road. I don't care if you're playing high school baseball. I don't care if you're playing I don't care what sport it is. It's hard to win in the other team's building. And so that's why, again, it feels so good when you walk out of someplace with a W. And so, unfortunately, the way the weekend played out, when you win the first one and lose the back two, you don't feel as good about even the, if you'd have lost the first two, but won on Saturday, you might feel, okay, all right, maybe we'll build a little momentum here as we go into the next week. That's not the way this played out. But to echo your point, that Notre Dame team, like you said, Bowling Green, they have finals this week, so they don't play ACC. They take the academics up there is no joke. So they basically give themselves the week. They do finals. They play Bowling Green, who's not, I think they're fourth, or I believe they're fourth in the MAC. And then, then they go down to a series at Miami, who's as hot as anybody. Mm-hmm. And I mean, what a matchup that is in terms of teams just headed in the correct direction, trying to play for ACC seeding, NCAA tournament hopes. That's a phenomenal matchup the last week. And like you said, it's with those two frontline guys, they are more than capable of going toe-to-toe with anybody, especially in conference. And so, and even more so when they're at home. And so I just thought that, they just seemed to do those little things. They pitched better than we did, and they came up with those timely hits even when we out-hit them. And again, we have had a little bit of a bugaboo about letting a certain guy over a weekend kind of have our number. And it happened again this weekend, and so we've got to be real careful about some things like that. I think sometimes we need to be more careful about stuff like that. But, they came up with the clutch hits. They got great pitching, and that leads to a series W for them.
Yeah, it was a weekend that I wish we could go back and steal an extra one on the road to improve that, because you just look at that 5-10 number on the road, and you just mentally you hope that doesn't hurt this team if we have to take this show on the road in the postseason, what that looks like. So I hope we are able to kind of reverse that this weekend against Georgia Tech down in Atlanta. This Georgia Tech team, I can't quite figure out. One final thought for you, Terry?
Yeah, I did have one final thought. Just because I should have said it just a second ago. I'm sorry. The thing is, when you look at the 5-10 road record, obviously not good, but it's not like we're going on the road and we're just getting shelled all over the place. I mean, you want to look up and down. Obviously, the UK game didn't go great, right? But we could have very easily won both of those other two games at Clemson. Could have, and maybe should have won the first one at NC State, and the same with the first one at Virginia Tech. And so it's not like this team is just completely overmatched. It's not like you go on the road and it's just like it's a complete just a travesty. We're right there. And so that again, like we're saying, that's what gives you the hope going forward. You got the Georgia Tech series. I know the games, in the ACC tournament, those are neutral site games, but are they going to have to go on the road in the NCAA tournament? Maybe. And so if they do have to go, there would probably be one or two games that is a true road game. And so this team has shown they are capable of doing it. But let's see if we can go down to Atlanta this weekend. We're just about to talk about it here, and let's prove to ourselves and our fans or whoever else it may be that feels like they need the team to prove it to them. Let's show what we're capable of on the road.
And going on the road to the Georgia Tech team that I don't think anybody in the country can quite figure out what's going on with them right now. They do have 2 midweeks this week. They play Georgia Southern on Tuesday and Mercer on Wednesday, so not taking those games into consideration. They've won their last 4. Before that, they lost the previous 7. So they're 7 and they're 4 in their last 11, but I can't quite figure out what's going on with this team. I think at one point they were ranked, I think in the top 10, if I'm not mistaken. They're 4th in the conference right now, but they're not ranked because of the 7-game losing stretch, obviously. 4 and 6 in the last 10 and 1 and 5 in their last 2 ACC series. This weekend, I think something to note that I think is going to be really important. Terry, you and I talked about this before, is their head coach, Danny Hall. This is his 32nd season as the head coach of the program, and these are his final 3 games as the head coach of Georgia Tech. So I can imagine they're probably going to have a big, celebration and honoring him, and all weekend they'll probably be doing things just to talk about his legacy and his 3 trips to Omaha and 1,200 wins at Georgia Tech. I mean, he's been there for a long, long time. So, obviously very worthy of whatever celebration they have, but you got to think that probably goes into play with how they're going to perform this weekend. They're probably going to have a little extra, little oomph because they're trying to send their coach out on a high note. So hopefully we can go in and reverse that. But this team is loaded. Offensively, they've got 7 guys that are batting .330 or better. And Drew Burris is, crazy enough, the lowest of that bunch. He's hitting .330, and he's one of the best hitters in the country. We talk about, wanting to see guys from other schools. He's that guy. He's the one you circle on this roster. He's up to 15 home runs, but I think he's, one of the top handful of hitters in the entire country. Next year when he's draft eligible, he's going to be near the top of the 2026 class. I mean, he's that guy, and he's a guy that can single-handedly beat you. I mean, that's what he is. That's the special talent that he has. They've got 3 guys over 50 RBIs on the roster, so they can score in bunches. I mean, this is a team that's very, very lethal offensively. Kyle Lodis, which is the cousin of the Lodis that plays at Florida State. I guess they just breed baseball players because they've got 2 dudes in their family. He's hitting .353. He's got 14 home runs. Alex Hernandez has 10 home runs. I mean, they've got a couple guys in this lineup that are going to be deadly, and we're going to have to really be selective on how we pitch some of these guys and just how you work their lineup. They're 8th in the country in batting average. Louisville is just behind them. So, I mean, offensively, these are 2 of the top offenses in the entire country. So if you want fireworks, this is probably a good place to go this weekend is if you want to see a bunch of runs scored in Atlanta. It's going to be one of those games that don't get frustrated if you give up a 4 spot somewhere because you may answer with a 5 of your own. That's just the kind of weekend we're probably going to be looking at. They do have a pretty good pitching staff. They're .441 on the mound ERA-wise. So I think just top to bottom, this is probably one of the better teams we've played. They're just not playing well right now. So, I mean, if they get their act together, I think Georgia Tech could be an Omaha team. I mean, they've got that type of talent, especially offensively. And when you get to Omaha, you obviously – the game changes a little bit, but this is a group that I could definitely see in Omaha if they start playing like they were playing, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. So I'm excited about the opportunity we've got down there. Three big games and a big opportunity for this team to show that they can take this show on the road and they can win and kind of cement themselves in the conversation to, hey, we can win these games on the road. We can be a host. We've done it before, and let's just put it together for an entire series and take this down and let's spoil Danny Hall's last weekend in Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jacket.
Yeah, I mean, an absolutely incredible career for Danny Hall, and so I'm happy that he gets to go out on his own terms. Announced it earlier in the year that this was going to be it for him, and so obviously they're going to do a lot of celebrating him this weekend. You never know kind of how emotional kind of send-offs and things like that will play with kids. I mean, I'm sure obviously they're going to want to have their best foot forward this weekend. Sometimes maybe you grip the bat a little extra tight, try to do a little more. It could be a detriment as much as it could be a help at times, just in terms of you really want to make sure that it's a good weekend for him, and so you might just try to do a little more than what you normally do. And so as far as the two teams are matched up, these are very, very similar baseball teams. The offenses are both, electric. There's going to be a lot of runs scored this weekend, I think. I mean, when I'm talking a lot of runs scored, I'm thinking like the NC State series type, and not like the 25 runs on Saturday, but, more so the way that, don't be surprised if there's some games in the double digits is, I guess, kind of what I'm thinking. Or if it's a 9-7 game or a, 11-8 game, things like that. Like, I think just the way these two teams hit the baseball, it's set up for that type of a weekend. Like you said, if you give up a 4 spot, it might not be the end of your day, because you could easily come back and throw up a 5 the very next half inning, which, to be honest, we've seen happen already this year on a couple different occasions. So both for our good and for our bad. So yeah, Drew Burress, you talked about him. What a talent, man. I mean, I was very fortunate to get to be down at the ACC Tournament last year. Got to see him play a couple times. When I was down in North Carolina to watch the USA Collegiate National Team and kind of follow Patrick and Tucker around in the summer, he was patrolling center field out there. I mean, the dude's just unbelievable. And he's a nicer guy. I mean, he's such a nice kid. Just such a good dude. I know a couple different people that have kind of interacted with him kind of in this kind of space that he sent like some care packages to, just like as a thing, just a good dude. And so, just excited again, like we've talked about on here, some different guys, Arnold, Canarella, some guys like that. This is one of those dudes again. Don't be surprised if he hits a homer or two. I'm sure it's probably in the cards for him at some point. And so, I mean, he's that guy. Like you mentioned, probably a top 10 pick in a year and a half or so. So, it'll be fun to get to watch him patrol out there in center field. But at the same time, we've got a chance to go down there and do something great this weekend, I think. I mean, I'm not one of those guys who ever goes into a weekend talking about sweep or anything like that. But the chance to go down there and win I don't even talk about that at home, for the record. I never go into a weekend thinking sweep. That's crazy to me, to just think that you're going to take all 3 from somebody. I mean, they have guys too. But can we go in there and win 2 games? Absolutely. It's there for the taking. Georgia Tech, completely agree with you. Their offense is good enough to get them to Omaha, without a doubt. Our offense is good enough to get us to Omaha. No doubt about it. 100%. But it's the other stuff, right? And they have that kind of same thing that we have. Can they do the other things? Can we do the other things? And so if we get back to basics, again, we've said it all year, first pitch strikes, pitch from ahead. You've got to pitch from ahead. If we are behind 2-0, 3-0, 3-1 in counts, it's going to be a long weekend. And so, we're going down there. We're going down there to Atlanta. I think 70-ish type weather for the weekend. We might be dodging some rain here and there. Ball's gonna be flying. It's gonna be humid. Obviously it's not July, but anyone who's been to Atlanta in the summer knows it'll heat up down there in a hurry. So let's be ready for it. We got to pitch accordingly. And if we take care of defense and pitching, we are going to come home with a series win this weekend. I have no doubt about it in my mind. And again, it's not proving it to ourselves, because I think these boys know they're more than capable. Yeah, it hasn't happened, but they know they're more than capable of winning these road series. But we've talked about it on here before. That's the one thing missing from our resume, is a road series win. So let's go down to Atlanta. It's our last chance to do it. It's our last chance to prove it. Let's do it. Hey, listen, Caden Campbell's on the other side. Hey, friend before, not friend anymore. Caden Campbell. Let's hit a couple out off Caden Campbell. Let's greet him rudely. Again, great mom, great dad. Love his family. Caden, good kid. But I hope he sends a couple, just grooves them right down there. And I hope maybe Zion backs up on one again. Or maybe Lucas Moore. I don't know what they do. Maybe he'll figure out how to buzz like a bee or do something instead of the way he tomahawk chops or whatever he does. So Lucas will figure something out. So let's send a couple out off Caden Campbell as well. And, let's make it a good weekend.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think it's a massive opportunity for this club to go down and try to win a big series on the road against a very, very high quality opponent. I think if next week when we're talking about the Georgia Tech series after it's over, if we can look back and we limit the walks and we limit the wild pitches and we get out of 3-0 counts. If we do those types of things, if we run the bases well, I think we're talking about this series that we won. And we can look at those stats next week and talk about it. But I think that's going to be the recipe this week. Like you said, they're offensive too, just like we are. So which pitching staff, which defense is going to do the small things right? That's who's going to win the series. We can try to out-hit them. They can try to out-hit us. That's going to be the name of the game with these two offenses. But defensively and on the mound, who is just going to get back to the basics and do the small things right. That's who's going to win this series. So I think, like you said, big opportunity. Love going down to Atlanta. Love the Caden Campbell connection. Hope we do hit a couple bombs off of him, just because we'll give him a handshake after the game, right? But in those 9 innings, we can't be friends right now. But afterwards, we can shake hands and make up. But no, I'm excited about what's to come this weekend in Atlanta as we try to spoil Caden and Coach Danny's last couple games down there.
I earlier in the year, I ran into Caden's mom and dad at the Cincinnati games, and he's for those who don't know, he's a Cincinnati kid, and so they popped over just to see people and say hi. And his mom asked if did I want to make a video, say hey to Caden, whatever, and I did, make a little, say hey, I hope you're been following along, obviously, with his year and whatnot, and told him I see him in a few weeks and whatnot. So I know that obviously it was nice to see his mom and dad. Great, like I said, great people. They're the best. I look forward to seeing them this weekend. Look forward to talking to Caden again a little bit. But yeah, when he's on the mound and we've got guys in the batter's box, I hope we greet him super rude. For the rest of the year, I hope he has tons of success. I hope he gets everybody else out. But for this weekend, yeah, I hope he gets chased pretty quick for sure.
And I'm sure he'll have a little extra pep in his step, when his number gets called. These are the type of games that if you're a coach, he's going to be out there at some point in time this weekend. Like you're not going to let this opportunity skate by and not throw a dude out there that used to, pitch for the team that you're playing against. So, that's kind of the modern era that we're playing in of college baseball, or college athletics, really, just, players transferring around. You see, players that are playing against their former team regularly now. So it's part of it. He can help with a scouting report. He's thrown against a lot of these guys. So that's just part of it. So, but hopefully we go down there and we have his number, because we've seen him a little bit on the mound a little bit too. So excited for this weekend. But we will be back next week to talk about this series and recap the final weekend series. It's kind of crazy to say that out loud, that next week we'll be talking about Wake Forest, which is the last weekend of the year. So we'll be back next week to talk about the Georgia Tech series, prepare everybody for Wake Forest and beyond as we approach the ACC Tournament, which starts, May 19th, I believe. So hopefully we play on the 20th, but other teams would play on the 19th. So Terry, in the meantime, I know you'll be down in Atlanta this weekend catching in all 3 games. Let's talk about the schedule just real quick, as we always do. Friday night is 6 o'clock, Saturday is 2:30, and then Sunday is the noon game, and on Saturday it's the ACC Network game. So that one you don't have to stream; that'll just be on regular television. So ACC Network on Saturday, 2:30. Hope for a big weekend down in Georgia Tech.
Undefeated on national television. I believe they ran it to 7-0. Now we'll have played Vanderbilt before then, but as of right now, I mean, I said that to the SID Stephen on the weekend after the series. I said, man, we need to play every game on national television, man. I mean, how do we figure out how to do that? So I don't know, we got to start our own network or what we need to do. But yeah, the boys play well when the bright lights are on, for sure.
Definitely, yeah. So Terry, I know you'll be down there this week and catching up with the players and coaches after the game. So tell everybody where they can find you and catch your post-game interviews.
Yeah, you can find me at on X at InsideVille BSB. Anything you want to know video wise and whatever is I'll message those things out or send those things out on X afterwards. But if you just want to check out or watch any of the post game comments, I get it from Dan or from players, especially after wins. You can find that on YouTube at Inside Louisville Baseball. I know after Atlanta, I'll stop off down in southeast Kentucky. I'm gonna watch. I'll get to see my guy Cade Elam next Monday as Corbin plays Somerset. So get to catch up with him, future middle infielder or corner infielder, maybe even for the Louisville Cardinals. If you don't know Cade, you'll know Cade. That's for sure. So that dude can play some baseball. He can swing it. He can get it. So I'm excited to see him on the next week as well. So yeah, you can find all the stuff there.
You took the words out of my mouth. If you don't know Cade Elam now, you get to know Cade Elam because the kid can play. Not only can he play on the diamond, he was a quarterback for the Corbin football team down there. I think he won a state championship a couple years ago, maybe. I don't think they won it this year, but I think they won it a couple years. I could be wrong on that. My high school baseball knowledge isn't where it should be, I guess. But good quarterback as well. But yeah, he's the real deal. If you don't know Cade Elam, in a couple of years, you will definitely know. That will be a household name. So excited to see what you come up with down there with Cade down in Corbin. So you can obviously find us on X at Third Central Pod, wherever you're listening to us. If you're listening to us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find us, like us, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We definitely appreciate it. Helps us grow this as much as we possibly can and reach as many baseball fans as we can out there. So it's kind of that time of the year for Louisville fans that, there's no basketball, there's no football. Everybody, the coverage starts turning to baseball at this point in the season. So we hope to give you all the coverage you want and a little bit deeper dive into the baseball program as to what's going on week by week. So we'll be back next week to talk about Georgia Tech and Wake Forest and carry us into the postseason. But for now, in the words of Sean Moth, we will see you at the ballpark.